Hello, all. I'm Bill Davis, and on behalf of the entire Office Hours team, both the people you see and the incredible back-end crew, I get to say welcome to our daily show. This is where we answer your tech questions live every day at 7 a.m. U.S. Pacific Standard Time. Time to get right to those questions. Alexander Knight is our reader today. Alexander, what do we have on tap?
First question this morning is coming from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida. How do I gain rights to stream to a Facebook page via API? It has been a while since I streamed to Facebook. Any Facebook streaming success tips? Thanks.
And Alexander's our reader. He is also answering our first question this morning. Alexander, dive in.
You know, I used to use Calendly, but I found that that service had some limitations. I was just using the free version. I ended up actually just recently finding, and I got a deal on it because of Black Friday, tidycal.com. And that's proving to be a very good service. I'm using it for booking guests for podcasts, and you can pick the time slots that are available. It integrates with iCloud. I believe it integrates with Google as well. So anytime someone books a time slot, you automatically get that calendar event showing up synced to your calendar on all your mobile devices that you have that. So tidycal.com for me is good. It's a one-time fee. I think it was $40, and I think they have a lifetime option as well. And you know, if you're averse to subscriptions or you want to keep your costs down, tidycal.com.
Okay, great. Alex Lindsay.
I'm not sure. I think that he was trying to stream to the Facebook page via API, if I'm reading that correcectly. And so,
I'm sorry. My mind was on another question. I apologize.
No,
Facebook. Last time
last week. Go ahead.
I just haven't had enough coffee this morning.
We're all waking up.
Facebook. You need 100 followers in order to do that. Last time I checked, a couple of months ago.
To do it with the API, to use the API or to stream.
I thought that was. I'm sorry. API.
The API is a direct. I mean, I think
RTMP.
It goes in and out of favor. So sometimes it's easy to get the access to the API, but typically getting access to the API to do, if you're talking about being able to build an event and start the stream remotely, things like Restream have it, of course, and StreamYard have it. I don't know a lot of, and I used to have it. So we're familiar with it. We had a kind of a built page because we were able to stream nonprofit, for donations and stuff like that. And you had to kind of build a separate page. And so we built into the API so that we were able to control the Facebook. But I don't know if that ever became a publicly available feature. It was usually like if you were partnered with Facebook or partnered with someone that they were partnered with, it was how you got access to it. And that may have changed. It's been years since I've had to think about that. But you may want to look at that. It may not be an opened API.
Yeah, that's what I've always understood, that APIs, application programming interfaces, are something that some companies allow their users to have access to do specific things, but a lot of software developers do not want you messing around in their APIs and just keep them locked down.
If Andy, I think, works for a pretty large company. If you have a Facebook rep, what you want to do, you probably have somebody that you're dealing with for advertising and other things like that. That's where you start to kind of run up that hill, is to talk to them and say, we really want to automate this. But if you have a Facebook rep, if you're a large enough company, that's because if you don't have a Facebook rep, you're not going to have a way in to make that actually happen. But that would be the way that you start talking to them. And then, of course, it's in their best interest to help you. And so they'll start calling around inside of Facebook and trying to get you to the live team.
There you go. Good advice. Next question.
Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky is asking, in our current flypacks, we utilize a laptop along with a multiview monitor and preview monitor, 3 screens. Are there any products that would allow me only one screen, such as a double wide monitor, etc.?
Courtney Gooden on our panel is going to take on this one. Courtney?
I don't know of any. There are some monitors that have multiple, quad inputs on them. This is what I have in my rack, but it's hard to find anything to mount in a rack. These Lilliput dual 7 inches. So this is what I have. So I have a multi-view and program view in these two. And these Lilliputs, I know Blackmagic makes a dual, but I don't like the Blackmagic one. These have multiple inputs. They have composite video, HDMI and SDI and VGA even input into them so that you can input several sources, and you have buttons on the front where you can switch sources. What a concept. You don't have to run software. And then the laptop screen as the laptop screen. most wide monitors there's some gaming monitors that may have dual inputs on them, but most of them are see, I can't even show you because it gets too wide for my camera. It's this wide. Won't fit into a 19-inch rack mount because they're too wide.
Alex, you do a ton of mobile production. What's your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like wide screens. We tried them. I will tell you that we just found them to be very cumbersome to work with because these really wide screens or curved screens or all kinds of the different ways that they build them. They're really hard to pack. They're hard to pack, and then you actually have lower resolution than if you just had a bunch of monitors. And so the thing that we leaned into maybe, 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago was really, we just have, we might have 4K, some 4K screens, but a lot of these like Dell $90 monitors, we have ARMs. So we've used a lot of the Amazon ARMs, but at home I have the Huano ARMs. Huano ARMs. They're sturdy. They're not quite as flexible as the Amazon ones, but there's 2 monitors per, and you just put them. Now that also means we're pretty careful about what kind of tables we have so that we can clamp them on. But having those, you just kind of move everything to where you want. Here's the problem you get into, or what we get into, is when you have a raw video out of a switcher or something you want to plug into from SDI to HDMI and then plug it into you want just a 1080p or 4K screen. You don't want it to be part of some kind of wider environment. And so we just really found that it was better to have screens that we can kind of move around, swing around, and we do a lot of that. So it's you can stack them vertically. I'm not a big stacking vertically fan. I find that I have a hard time remembering where I'm at. So I kind of keep them mostly in horizontal turns. But like I have, to put it in perspective, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them right now, on ARMs. And so I would really think about ARMs as over wide, over an ultra wide one. They're also easier to pack. What we do is we actually put Velcro on the edges. I don't have them on these ones, but we put Velcro on the bezels. And then we get plastic, tap plastic or whatever, and we just drop it on top when we ship them. And that keeps the screen from breaking when you're stacking them together.
Nice tips. Next question.
Robert Shoji in Los Angeles. Can you discuss the various quick release plates available for cameras? Which one do you use?
Jesse Kester is going to start us out with this. Jesse?
I'll start you off, but I don't know if I'll be able to finish it because there are so many types of quick release plates that I don't want to just go through a giant spreadsheet of how they differ. I'm going to take a more 1,000-foot view. And we think of our quick release plates in kind of 3 classes. There's the $15 and cheaper at Goodwill type quick release plates, and we only use these for very, 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 very small cameras that we don't care about, like little point and shoot 35 millimeter whatever cameras. Up from there's like the kind of 2-pound to 15-pound zone, and that's where we hang out most of the time. And when we're in that zone, we're thinking about Manfrotto plates. And then once you get above 15 pounds, you really want to be looking into the more professional and much more expensive solutions. So you kind of start from the weight class of the camera that you're going to be mounting, or the fully built out camera, not just the body, but the full build that you're doing, and then find something in that range that fits your needs. And the most important thing is, if you're buying into a system, assume that you're buying into that system across your entire kit. You don't want this tripod to be one type of quick release plate and that one to be another, and then your gimbal to be a third type of quick release plate. You will lose your mind and end up selling all the gear that isn't in the single ecosystem just because you lose so much time swapping them out.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, like Jesse just said, there's a variety of the small ones for like Manfrotto that have, each of them have their own custom ones. The ones that we use professionally most of the time on the set are the Sackler Touch and Goes. This touch and go plate will lock into this little receiver thing, and it has a lock. And these can be mounted on dovetail sliders, which will go onto the Arri balance plates or the Panavision balance plates or many other tripods. This has become kind of a standard plate for quick release plates in the industry. So that's what we use in Hollywood.
Alex Lindsay.
Up north, we use we use Sony VCT plates. So VCT plates are they've got a little triangle on the front, a little wedge, and then they have a round lock on the back. And for broadcast cameras and a lot of cameras, I've got a bunch of them. The one that I'm using right now, just because I'm I can't afford anything better are the small rig ones, and they're working just fine. I mean, they're not quite as good, obviously, as the some of the airy ones that I've had in the past. but the small rig ones are about $300, $350, and what's going to happen is it's got a shoulder rig, and then it's got a base plate, and then I have one on a camera here. I just can't pull it out right now. And then you just sit there and you can kind of snap it in. And it's just a really quick snap in. And then the nice thing is it's got a big lever on the side. You just kind of pull it open and pop it off, and then you snap it back in again. And then you really know that it's in, and so I think that there's obviously a lot of smaller ones, but if you're looking for something that for broadcast that you just set it down and it just goes. Now that's not going to work for your PTZ cameras or whatever, but if you're looking at a rig that you're building out, it's a pretty great solution.
I've gone through the same process, and for me, I was always with bigger stuff earlier in my career. Cameras got smaller and smaller and smaller the longer my career lasted. In the beginning, I would use the kind of plates that are absolutely required if you're using a teleprompter or something like that. They're on a system where you can slide to load balance forward and aft. Sony made most of the ones I used, but there were other companies that had, serious locking plates for a heavy shoulder mount camera with a tripod or with a teleprompter mounted on it, and you have to really have that fore and aft 6 to 8 inches of slide to make sure you can balance a rig as you reconfigure your rig. Is the battery on it or off, or using a focus kit and stuff like that? Then through the middle of my career, things just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller up to today when we're having so many people shooting on iPhones and things like that. So I went through classes and classes of tripod mounting plates, down to the point where I now have a whole little bag full of what are called hawk locks. I think this is a small rig product, although it might be somebody else, but they're incredibly tiny. And when you're mounting an iPhone in a cage to something like a monopod, those little hawk locks are fabulous. They're pretty well engineered. They're really, you can tell with your thumb when it's locked in place because you don't want to be bashing your...
Is it a hot lock or is it the NATO mount?
Hawk, H-A-W-K, hawk lock.
Right.
And it's a very, very tiny. It's maybe a little less than 3/4 of an inch by about the same both sides. It has a little crown on it. It's connected with an internal hex key screw, and it comes in 2 parts, and the top really fits very flush to it, so it doesn't add a lot of vertical height to a mount. And all of my iPhone rigs are now on those hawk locks. And,
and I have to admit, like all the stuff that I mount around it, around it with a small rig, I kind of went towards NATO, which I felt like, which are a little bit bigger than what you're talking about.
And they have a little sliding motion in the NATO rails. Most of the time you can get those little sliders, which I think are great for balancing like microphones and moving a microphone a little off center if it's conflicting with another rig. So I like those too. Anyway, there's some thoughts to you about mounting in all the classes from big to small. Let's move on to the next question.
Paul Wall, who's in Austin, Texas. Splashtop is very expensive compared to RemotePC and TeamViewer. What does it offer that makes it worth the price difference? This review offers comparisons to all three.
I do not use Splashtop. I know a lot of people do this kind of remote call into the main system and operate it, and unfortunately, I do not. So I wouldn't want to speak on something where I have not just lacking, but almost no information. So, Courtney's going to dive in and save me here. Courtney, dive in.
I was just going to mention something that if you're a Windows user, I know there's nobody here other than me who's a Windows user, but they have a new thing in Windows 11 that is very handy for remote connecting and controlling somebody else's computer from afar. It works on all Windows 11 now. Control-Shift-Q. That letter combination pops up a little window, and it'll give you a number. People do it on both. You have somebody do it on both sides, and it'll give you a number. You give that number to the other person. They type it into theirs, and they connect the two computers together, and you have remote access and remote control of their mouse and full screen of their image of their desktop. So Control-Shift-Q. It's a way for controlling somebody else's computer to help them out. Comes in very handy these days on the Windows.
Nice. Alex Lindsay.
And Mickey said that Splashtop is, or Chris said that Splashtop is way cheaper than TeamViewer, which is true. Mickey said that having had to use RemotePC, Splashtop is actually usable while RemotePC is just painful to use. He says Splashtop provides good latency and is responsive. RemotePC is ... Never mind. so anyway, that's Mickey's review of that comparison.
Nice. Next question.
Oliver Breidenbach from the QR code is asking, we now have a Mac Mini M4 available in the Cochran Cloud for cloud-based mimoLive production for the office hours community. Does anyone know of a good online tool to reserve it for specific times, preferably with Google Calendar integration?
That is nice. I've never heard someone call it the Cochran Cloud before. This is awesome.
I think that this is Alex. I think you can repeat your answer. I think this is the one you were looking at there.
That's what happens when you work 14 hours and get 4 hours of sleep. Exactly. Yes, tidycal.com.
He's here. He's here. I just want to let everyone know he worked hard. He wants to sleep, but commitment to the purpose.
Commitment. He's
right.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
He's reading.
Tidycal.com is working well for me. I got it cheap on Black Friday, so you should investigate that option.
There you go. So book it, and let's talk more about the Cochran Cloud as we go along. It's an interesting idea. Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida. Can you stream directly from a Discord video meeting, Discord as a WebRTC tool, to a custom RTMP location? Thanks.
Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
I don't think so. And I don't know if you would want to. I mean, the Discord video and audio, maybe it's gotten better. It just seems like, I just watch a lot of people having trouble with it, like literally this week. That it's just really, they're really good at text. I don't know if they're very good at video and audio, and they keep on trying, and maybe they'll figure it out. But every time I see someone do something with Discord, it just feels like it's falling apart half the time, and they're having trouble getting it turned on. They have trouble, maybe you have to do it that way because of whatever you're doing. But if it's got some way for someone to connect, I don't think there's any automatic way to do that, because I think Discord is really designing it for something that's happening inside of Discord. You could have someone, I guess, connect and try to pull it, but it feels like that would be a really painful thing to do. To try to stream from, because I always feel like the Discord video and audio just barely work as it is. And so I say that based on things that happened like earlier this week, not like something that I saw a year or two ago. So it just feels like it's, it was written. What happens is you get a bunch of coders say, streaming isn't that hard. We can figure this out. And they didn't hire like experts to come in and just build it. So then they built a bunch of spaghetti code. I mean, I don't know what happened in Discord. I'm just telling you, this is what happens in other companies that I've seen that they, somebody inside is really smart. They are smart. They're programmers. They're advanced programmers. They're really smart, but they don't understand streaming. They don't understand video. They don't understand. And they figure they can read a bunch of books and figure this all out because they're smart. They've been smart their entire life. And so they go in and they go, okay, I'm going to figure this out. But they're coming in from the outside, and they make a whole bunch of bad decisions that anybody that had done this for a while would not have made. And it just feels like that's what Discord did. They had a bunch of really smart programmers who came in and made a whole bunch of mistakes, and now and then they poured concrete into that form, and now they're like trying to work their way through that. It's better just to pay the money and hire. You go poach a couple people from a company that knows how to do this, and then you put them in. That's what Facebook did with Facebook Live. So like Facebook Live got off the ground much faster because there were people from other companies that had already done live that were working there that had been working somewhere else. So anyway, that's the way to do that.
I think I've seen this story a bunch before in this history, and it seems almost like you can imagine a board meeting at one of those big companies where they're going, okay, this is not our core competency, but look over at our competition A, B, and C. They're all doing streaming, so we have to do streaming. So let's get an initiative together and throw it into our code.
Well, I
wanted 6 months to be doing streaming.
I think that, but I will say that I think that it's hard because anybody who's smart thinks that they can figure anything out. And I think that it's just, and they can figure it out. And the thing is that we get into this. I mean, that's one of the values I hope we bring with office hours is that between the folks that are watching and putting answers in and the folks that are on the panel, there's a lot of people with actual, real knowledge that not speculative knowledge, but true knowledge of actually doing this that is providing feedback. And I think this just points to the problem that you see with a lot of software companies. Smart people, again, they were the smartest kid in a lot of the people that work at these companies were the smartest kid in the room most of their life. And then they ended up in a big company where there's a lot of them. So they're not maybe the smartest person in the room, but there's a lot of really smart folks that are there. and there's an arrogance that comes with that, and that is like, I can just figure anything out, and because they typically do. But if you start doing it too quickly, I can figure a lot of things out, but I try to do it very slowly, and I approach it like I don't know until I've tested it. Like I don't know how to do this. And I find people who do know how to do it, who have done it before, and I start pinging them with questions. And building a big network like Office Hours means that between Office Hours and other networks that I have, I'm constantly asking questions, constantly peppering people with questions. Well, how do you do this? And how does that work? And what connected there? And how does this work? And I'm trying to figure it all out, not assuming that I can just read a book or read the manual and know. And so anyway, so those are the things but I think that what it felt like with Discord is a bunch of really smart programmers who didn't know anything about audio and video put something together, then poured concrete into it, and it's not going to work until they tear it out and put it back together. Like, it's not going to really work until they tear the whole thing out and just replace it with another platform. And they will. I mean, that's people have done that before. I mean, it's.
Do you think part of that is the fundamental APIs? And I'm thinking back when the big OS 10 shift came and we got core video and core audio, the programmers who were all wanting to develop for Macs knew they had these tools then suddenly, and I think very much like what you're describing, maybe people who weren't in the video side of things decided, well, I've got all these calls and APIs.
Well, and the problem is that
stuff.
A lot of times people get into esoteric stuff. So they theoretically, certain platforms and formats and everything else make sense, and they're all open source or they're all whatever, and they get into these kind of religious, like, this is the way, the way to do it, and they get into kind of an esoteric solution. But an esoteric solution is not a real solution. Like, it's, it's very, you got to figure out, how are our feet actually going to touch the ground when we use this? And I think that they, a lot of programmers that are deep into that oftentimes get lost in that forest, of just thinking about all the theoretical potential of something rather than how is it actually going to work, and then building small and making sure that each piece works. And where you see, I will say that where you see this executed the best, the opposite of what I just said, is the Zoom broadcast team. I mean, you want to see people build tools by people who know what they're doing and know how to do it, and then execute it in a sane and manageable way. I've never seen a team at a large corporation run like the Zoom broadcast team. Like it is, and it's because that they're doing all these things. They're figuring them out slowly. They're checking them against reality. And then they have really, really, really smart people who actually know a lot about the thing that they're doing. And so anyway, so that's the opposite of what's happening in Discord. And if I were you, I would just do a Zoom meeting and use Zoom ISO or Pro AV and call it a day. It'll all work just fine.
Next question.
Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky. Do you guys know of a way to utilize a Stream Deck wirelessly?
Oh, Courtney, have you figured anything out?
Well, I'm not sure what your purpose is. The problem with the Stream Deck is it requires a pretty good amount of power because it's got, a display and a backlight in it. There are things like these wireless USB transmitters, which you could try. But, maybe an easier way, if you just want to do the same purpose as your stream, just use a tablet PC or an iPad mini and run Companion on it, and that connects over Wi-Fi. And you can control your Stream Deck wirelessly that way. That one might be the easiest way, and it's portable. It's wireless. You don't have to plug it in, and you can recharge it, and it'll go, almost all day. When
you started saying that, Courtney, it's like, oh, that makes sense. But let's see what Alexander Knight thinks.
Not with the hardware, but of course there's the Stream Deck mobile app. And if you use BitFocus Companion like I do to control my Stream Deck, once it is put on your network, you have the web interface available. So that's another web interface for Companion to access the Stream Deck, which is very powerful as well.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, and Mickey was just in the Raspberry Pi Wi-Fi hat. But why? Just run a cable, batteries to run it all, of course, if you need to. So, yeah, it'd be interesting. Like if you ask that question again, or something like it. Yeah, what's the challenge? Why would you want to do it wirelessly? If it's something that's close by, I wouldn't. You never use. This is the overall rule: never use wireless when you could use wired. Wireless is and only bridge wireless the distance it absolutely has to go, because wireless is always going to be less stable. And so, always try to find a place that you can do it in a wired way.
Next question.
Next question is from me. How did NTSC and PAL standards start, and why does Europe use different frame rates like 25 and 50?
So back in the early days, it was power-based. The European power system worked on 50 hertz, as I remember correctly. I might be wrong about maybe it was 25, but that's why they established 25 frames per second. The U.S. was a 60 hertz system, 60 cycles per second. So there was a fundamental mismatch between the power delivery systems in Europe and America, and so these two different standards built up. You also have CCAM and some other systems that for different parts of the world. And at some point or another, those of us who started in video in early days just had to understand that these things work that way and how to transcode between the systems and make them work. Courtney, you want to get into the heavier engineering of it?
Well, just basically, you cover the frame rate differences is based on power line frequency. Back in the days, in the early days of black and white, televisions synchronized their frame rates to the power line sources, the AC power. And in Europe, it's 50 hertz. So half of that is 25 hertz for the cameras would run at 25 and video would have a 25 frame rate. As far as PAL and NTSC, when they went to color, NTSC, which we always refer to as never the same color, incorporates the color into a subcarrier that is compatible with black and white. And that's why they went to 2997 and slowed down the frame rate to incorporate, make room for that color subcarrier in broadcast and transmission of the color television signal. PAL used another method for superimposing the color onto their broadcast transmission, which is not the same. So they didn't have to change their frame rate when they went to color systems. So they stayed at 25 and 50.
Next question.
Burkhard Friedrich in Isterburg, Germany is asking, what's the AI tool you recommend for automated editing highlight reels from a longer video for Instagram use?
For me, this is this is like saying, would you hire a player piano to do the music at your wedding? I do not use any of them for editing just because I understand editing fluidly, and it's faster and easier for me to do something custom than to try to automate it. Now, I understand there are a lot of people who aren't in that circumstance, and for simple kind of on-the-beat cutting under an algorithmic set of rules, there are some good tools out there, I understand. I would never use one of them because I think if you're not applying thinking to editing, you're not really editing, you're assembling. But if that's your task, to assemble reels, these can do it. Alex, what do you think?
Opus. so Opus, we had them on the show. I've used them for a lot of things. I know a lot of friends that use a lot of them. I mean, if you're trying to, here's the thing: you got, you need to do a fast turn. So there's two different ways of doing highlight reels. If you're looking for AI, I think Opus is the best right now. Descript does it as well. So there's the two for you to compare against, and you can get some credits and try them and see how they turn out. I think that Opus right now is the top one, is the most effective at doing this. And the issue you get yourself into is that, you want to do fast turn, you want to produce a bunch of social highlights, you want to throw a bunch of stuff in. And the thing is, you can finish something, a 2-hour show, throw it in, 15 minutes later, you have probably what you would have found. And is it as good as doing it by hand? No. Is it way faster in 15 minutes to find most of what you need? Because a lot of this is disposable content. You're just throwing things in. Now, if you really want really good, the best clips selected the best way that you make available the next day or the 2 days later, you should use a human being, because a human being is going to walk through it. And what's best if you're trying to do it quickly is have someone take notes while they're watching the show. So you have people say they've got a timer running, and then they just put in. I have an app. I don't remember what it's called. I have an app on my iPad. I can just type in a note that says, "This is great. This is great. This is great," and it keeps the time code, the time of day of when I set it. And when we resync that, we can very quickly find what it is. Jason Snell talked on MacBreak about. It's kind of a cool idea. He built up a bunch of shortcuts, and what he has is a Stream Deck, and the different buttons mean different things, like this is an edit point, or this is a great highlight, or this is a cough, or this is a whatever, or take this out. and he just pushes those buttons, and it actually ends up putting markers in Final Cut for him. So when he opens up his record of the podcast, the markers of everything he wanted to grab are already there. And so I think that's another way for you to think about ways to make it easier. We do, Own I Know does services for companies where during the show, we're clipping things out. So we clip out highlights there and then deliver them. It's not AI, it's a person doing that. So there's a lot of different ways of doing clipping. But if what you're looking for is AI, Opus is probably the best one right now.
And Phil Hodgetts and Greg Clark at Intelligent Assistants had that in their Lumberjack systems where you can sit with an iPhone or an iPad and preload it with topics and click on them, and then it will go back and auto-assemble those things into classifications for you. I will just say one thing. This is, to me, this is convention banquet food. Good banquet catering operations do a fine job, but you're never going to mistake what you get set on your plate at a large 500-person banquet as being the same as what you're going to get in a good restaurant when you go in and have somebody cook for you. And that doesn't mean it's impalatable or there's not a place for it, but I don't know anybody that I've ever run into who would prefer to eat banquet food all of the time. Yeah, well, you do that when it makes sense.
I think, and in this case, I think when you're looking at these, I work on a lot of shows where all the content is worthless 24 hours after the show. Like it's just, and so you don't have, so there is a time, to Bill's point, there's definitely a time for banquet food. And if you're dealing with if you're looking for highlight reels that you want to use for that you want to have last for a year or be something that everyone uses as a meme or does whatever, you probably want a person to do that. If you want something that is going to tell people a little about what happened in the show a day later that will just disappear into the ether 2 weeks later, then AI works great. It gives you a lot of, shotgun kind of like everything out there. So.
Well, it just automates everything, which is what you need sometime. You don't want to put a lot of thought and effort into it. You just want to get the stuff out the door. Perfect. But next question.
Douglas Carmichael's asking, would there be any alternative to ShadowPC that would deliver a cloud-based PC for a fixed price per month? I've been using Shadow for a while, but experiencing high latency since switching internet service providers.
Alex Lindsay.
We use ShadowPC. I think I know that we've used a couple different ones, but when we need a PC that's there, we don't have a lot of PCs laying around. When we need a PC that's there, we use ShadowPC.
There you go. Next question.
Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky. Since DSC Labs announced their closing, are there any alternatives to what they offer? I'm thinking more of a larger color charts for production. I'm not speaking about the small chip charts we use for indie stuff.
Alex, what do you think?
X-Rite makes some larger ones. They don't make really large ones. The DSC Labs, they own that market. So the fact that they're closing is a big deal. Like I know a lot of people that were kind of panicking and trying to order them, and they're expensive. They're, thousands of dollars. I'm kind of surprised they didn't just sell it to somebody else, or I guess that nobody else wanted to buy it, because they're really, really useful. For those of you who haven't seen one, this is what they look like. This is one of them anyway. And this is a 12R. This is an example of one here. So this is the one that a lot of us have used. This is a 12R. I tend to use a 28R, but for work. But that just means there's more colors on it. But the point is it's very, very accurate. And people say, well, can you do it cheaper? Not when it's accurate. You can't use it. It's not going to be accurate. And this so it's, as Mickey said, the Calibrite makes some good ones. I'm going to put this back in right now. Because it's accurate, you put it right back. As soon as you're done with it, you put it right back in the case. You get kind of like, got to put it back in the case.
Protected.
And Alex asked, it's made out of metal, so it's metal. That's part of why it holds what it does. It does mean that when you transport it, and someone puts it on top of the case the wrong way and it gets bent, it's no longer useful. Ask me how I know. So anyway, not this
Ouch.
one. So, but I had one killed in transit. Anyway, we've used them. Calibrite makes good ones. There's a couple things about it that it does, and I don't know whether it was a patent or whether they just chose this path. What happens with these colors that go around is they actually are markers on your vector scope. So you can, if it builds a pattern on your vector scope that you can see that when it's lined up on your vector scope, you know that camera is locked in. And even if you don't do the vector scope, which I never use, I use that though I will cut, like if I'm doing two cameras, I'll cut that rectangle out and have another rectangle and have one camera on the inside, one camera on the outside, as a crossfade. And then I just get rid of the line. So I keep on correcting the camera until that line between them disappears. And when that disappears, those two cameras are perfectly matched. So that's a way to kind of imagine, because a lot of times we want to make it look a little warmer or a little cooler, depending on what we're doing. We're not really trying to make it look accurate. So that's why we do it that way. So it's an incredible piece of hardware. I'm still kind of blown away that someone like Arri didn't. I mean, I think both companies are very near each other. I'm kind of surprised that Arri hasn't just bought them. Like I picked it up and made it an Arri product. So anyway, we'll see.
I wonder if they worry that computational color matching is coming in and there may not be a purpose for them.
I don't know. I mean,
pure speculation here.
A lot of us have thought that like someone with Blackmagic, someone could, and there are people who have tried this. I just haven't seen anyone be successful at it, that you could theoretically have someone like, they're just retiring. The people who own it, who started it, they just decided they don't want to do it anymore. And they just don't want to work on it. And I, maybe they couldn't find a buyer, maybe they couldn't, whatever, but they're just retiring. That's why it's closing. It's not any other reason that I know of. A lot of us have talked about the potential of using a color chart that would just, you put it in front of a Blackmagic camera, for instance, and it just uses all the colors and figures out where it is, and then just snaps the camera to a certain look that you want. And you could theoretically or have a camera say this is. You say, I love the way this camera looks. It looks at the color chart and then takes it to another camera and matches it. And we all feel like that should be possible somewhere within the Blackmagic API, especially, but we just haven't seen anybody do it yet.
For those of you who might want to sneak a question in before the end of the show, don't forget we run on your questions. There's the QR code up in the bottom corner, and also up at the top you can see it says if you'd like to put them in generically, you can go to askofficehours.global and put in your questions. And then if you're in the Mukana system in the back end, you can vote those questions up or down, and the questions with the most votes we get to faster. So don't forget that's available to you. I'm going to go to the next question.
From Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand. Want to code on iOS app? This video, all I can say is wow. Thoughts?
Has somebody done an auto coding in Swift or something like that? Courtney, did you look at this?
I just briefly looked at it. Didn't have a whole lot of time to watch it. But yeah, that's what it is. It's like a ChatGPT trained code. ChatGPT, OpenAI, has a number of code trained AIs that are out there that will write code directly for you in the chat window. And that's what this is basically, only it's trained on Swift, so that you can write your Mac applications, iOS applications directly using the AI. Code Companion, I think, is the other one that's out there that works with a variety of languages that's out there. But my fear is that now the store, the Apple Store, is now going to be filled with worthless apps that people have AI generated. There's going to be 12,000 flashlight apps and fart apps, and
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're using it a lot. We haven't been using it for Xcode yet, but it's actually something that's on my plans for this weekend. Is to try to build a test app that I just do inside of just with ChatGPT. And there's a lot of different ones that can be used for this. But I do think that I know that stuff we've done with JavaScript and Python and HTML have been mind-numbingly powerful. Like, it's just, we're kind of mystified by how good some of the scripting has been. I do feel like you're going to end up, as Courtney said, building a lot of garbage code if you just use it and cut and paste it in. But for things that we're just trying to figure out real quickly, it's transformational to go. I know Kevin, who I work with, Kevin Hansen, people probably know, is we were trying to figure something out. It was very esoteric, And I just said, what? Or I think he jumped, I don't think I said anything. He just jumped into AI to, I don't know which one he used. I think it was ChatGPT. And he just said, oh, I just did it in 15 minutes. You know, he said, I got to refine my prompt a little bit. But it's not that he couldn't write it. It's that it would have taken a lot longer, days, to write something that he pumped out in 15 minutes. And now we can refine it, figure it out, and it just solves problems for you. So I think for those kinds of things, and for me, what I'm trying to do is there's some stuff I'm stuck with something else. I just want to see what the AI does with it. You know, I just want us to have it, just try to write that. I'm going to put it in and see if it's doing a better job of what we're trying to figure out as kind of a brainstorm. And that's what I use AI for more than anything else, is brainstorming. Just brainstorming code, brainstorming images, brainstorming, you know, a lot of different things like that.
Next question.
Eduardo Augustine in Panama City. Zoom has multiple products. Which one is the one Office Hours uses? How can I replicate having a prep room prior to going to the main event?
And you're lucky, because on the panel today is Alex Lindsay, who understands all of this. Alex, dive in.
I think we use almost all of their video-based product. We don't use any of the other stuff that Zoom does, but we use a lot of the video-based products. The prep room that you're talking about is just a Zoom meeting. So what we're doing this show in, so the show is each one of our inputs are being pulled out of Zoom ISO, but that's just a member joining a room, and that's another breakout room. So we just lots and lots of breakout rooms. We, what we do is a lot of times for the shows that I work on, this is a bad color. Hold on. For the shows that I work on, you have the main room, and then we have these other rooms that we do different things in. So we might have this might be the broadcast room. This might be the green room. Oftentimes, this is what we call hair and makeup, which is figuring out your Ethernet cable and your mics and everything else. And this is the greeting room, right? So this is kind of like, and then what happens is someone, as soon as they arrive here, they get sent here. And by the way, the first person who told me this was not us, it was Grant. Grant was like, oh, this is how we do it. And I took it and ran with it. I just want to give him proper attribution. So people come in, we say hi, we're talking to them a little bit. We move them over to each one of them one at a time and clean up however we want them to look. The reason we do that is because people get really stressed if you pick at them in front of their peers. So we never want to tell anyone how to fix their video or audio or connection in front of other people they're going to speak with, because it damages how they feel like and it affects their performance. So we want to move them into a one-on-one and work with them there. Once they're all cleaned up, we put them into the green room. They're all ready to go, and they're all talking to each other, and that's great. And then we can move them into broadcast as needed. So oftentimes we're switching people in and out during a broadcast. So that's how that works. And then Zoom is kind of Zoom ISO or Pro AV is, you know, grabbing onto stuff there, you know, pulling people out and then sending them off to production. And I call this the Emerald City protocol is what we call it. So the ECP. So
follow the yellow brick road.
No, it's Emerald City. You know, like, because what happened was I was talking to I was trying to explain how this worked to a client, and I was like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, remember in the Emerald City in the Wizard of Oz where they brush you up and then they do this thing and you go from one place to the other and and they're like, oh, like the Emerald City. And I was like, yeah, it's the Emerald City. And then from then on, it became the Emerald City protocol. So anyway, that's how we do that. But that's all just a Zoom meeting. There's nothing special about it.
Next question.
Next question is from Paul Vol, who's in Austin, Texas. What do you expect the features and price to be of the new Obsbot Tail 2?
And there's a link to it for those of you who may not have looked at that device. Courtney, have you looked?
I have looked. It's a PTZ camera. It's $1,100, but the early bird special is $1,000 or $999 right now if you go on and sign on. And the features, it's basically has AI tracking rather than just doing there's the price right now. Rather than doing just face tracking, it has indi support. It tracks the whole body, so that if you're doing dance moves. It also has a lens that rotates 90 degrees inside the PTZ, so that you can do, you know, all of you people that have to do those, what is it that uses vertical? Oh, yes, social media. So all of you that are addicted to social media with the vertical 9x16 it can just rotate the camera lens and sensor 90 degrees within the PTZ itself, so that you can then do pan, tilt, and zoom in a vertical format as well.
Next question.
Henry Ramos in Yonkers, New York. Has anyone tried Flux AI? Just discovered it and wondering if a local install requires a dedicated PC.
Alex, what do you know about this piece?
Well, I don't know if it requires that, but I have to say, like, now you're really starting to see the future of AI when you go to their site. They're doing PCBs with AI Copilot, and so you have, it's helping you build circuits and design circuits with AI, which is, that can become a very expensive thing, a very expensive mistake, because it's one thing to write bad code and go, oh, it's too bad. Another thing to print 100, or 100,000 boards and have them not work. So anyway, I think that's interesting, but I do think it's an interesting glimpse of the future of how this is going to go.
Courtney?
Yeah, it does. Flux is one of the top-rated generators, right? Generative AI's engines out there right now. There's a Flux 1.1 or something that does video generation as well as still generation. It does require a high-end video card with lots and lots of video RAM. So if you're going to get probably more than is available on most commercial, NVIDIA cards out there. So, to do that really high-end stuff for video generation, you need 32 gigs of video RAM or 64 gigs of video RAM. Most NVIDIA cards come with 8 gigs, so that gives you a little handle on how much you're going to need if you're going to do it locally on your own PC. So bear that in mind.
Next question.
Peter Belbin in Houston, Texas. Has anyone else encountered needing to disable IPv6 in order for the Windows version of the Blackmagic Web Presenter setup app to not die almost immediately on opening it? Seems like a nasty little bug.
Alex, thoughts?
I would try it on another PC to make sure it's not something that's in the PC, and then I'd probably report it to them. It could be a nasty little bug, So I would I would report that, but I would first check it on another PC that isn't connected to the internet, that is connected to the web presenter, and just see if it has the same behavior.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, has anyone ever used handheld PCs like the ASUS ROG Ally X in a production setting?
I don't know if anybody here has any experience with that particular type of handheld PC. Oh, good. Courtney raised his hand. Courtney, I know, has a lot of experience with those small PCs.
I don't know if I'm using a handheld PC, which is basically a tablet PC over here for my comms right now. That is a Windows 11 PC. It's an 8-inch tablet. Looks like an iPad to anyone else. A Republic of Gaming, those are gaming handhelds. I think they're designed for portable gaming. No, and I haven't used those in a production setting because it has a gamer's interface on it, a small LCD screen like that. But no, what I do use is tablet PCs, which you can get for about $200. They're cheaper than some of the controllers that are out there, and they run a full versions of Windows 11 these days.
There you go. Next question.
Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand is asking, YouTube ads are becoming longer. Here in New Zealand, I'm getting close to 60 seconds of ads. One will allow to click next, which takes you to the next ad that you can skip after 5 seconds. I'm an Aussie living in New Zealand, so ads are sometimes targeted. Thoughts?
Let's start with Jesse Kester. A lot of people want to get in on this.
The value proposition is there for a YouTube Premium. Please understand the cost of interruptions every 3 to 4 minutes. If you're trying to work, you're trying to flow, you're trying to learn, you're trying to build something, you're trying to do something, anything, and to have somebody poke you in the back of the neck with a little needle every 3 minutes to stop you and make you get that needle out of the back of your neck is very disruptive and very destructive to how your brain is supposed to work.
That was a creepy metaphor. It made me shiver. Next, Alex, Lindsay.
The last subscription that I will give up is YouTube Premium. That's all I got to say. Like, I watched a lot of YouTube. There's been a couple times when my card expired or whatever, and I ended up suddenly getting ads, and I literally don't know how YouTube succeeds or how anyone uses YouTube when the ads are on. Like, it is just the most heinous experience. And so I don't even understand how it operates as a business without it, because it's so bad when it has ads. So I don't know how much it is. I don't know if it's available in New Zealand, but if you're not on YouTube Premium, you should. YouTube's an entirely different product when it's in Premium, like just the way you watch it and how you use it.
Harshid.
I'm going to give you a little preview of, I was recently in India, and the pricing plans in India were far cheaper. For like a year family plan was about $30. But not everybody's able to afford perhaps the $11.99 in the US or the $26 after taxes and all for the family plan. But a good way of maybe getting around that could be is, if you have a couple friends, say, hey, if you have a family plan, can I jump onto your account? All you're doing is sharing your email account at that point. And you still have that access, because at this point, the ads are kind of two ways, right? When you're a YouTuber, you're getting kind of the payback from people giving advertising, and therefore it is putting money in somebody's pockets. But on the contrary, it's also affecting how you're receiving the content, and having that break every so often might be a little irritating. So even if it is New Zealand or Australia, you may consider a family plan with friends, and that might be cheaper. It might be for, let's say, $5-6 in US. And that way you're at least avoiding the advertisements. And it's not that it's, once the advertisements are there for a reason, the 60 minutes or 60 seconds, and so forth, that might be just algorithmically that there's a more pool of people that are willing to just go for free. And we're also hacking it in a way by using ad blockers. So maybe this is a purposeful driven thing to do, that since people are abusing it, you get more longer ads.
Courtney Gooden.
I vote on abusing it. The problem is, on a PC, I will use regular YouTube and put up with the ads. On streaming sticks, though, what I've done is I like, as I've mentioned many times here, SmartTube Next. This is an app that runs on the Google Android platform. So you can put it on streaming sticks, like I mentioned this one yesterday from Walmart. Here's one for $14.88. They make one for $19.95 that's 4K. This is the 1080p version of it. And this has Google TV built into it. And you can sideload the SmartTube Next app onto these little $14 streaming sticks. And you can have, ad-free. Not only does it's open source. This is an open source program. You do have to sideload it because Google will obviously not let it in on the Play Store. But it will not only prevent any interruptions for ads, it'll actually skip over, because it's cloud sourced. It'll skip over promotional pieces that people stick into their YouTube videos, like it'll skip over that 40-second open that is on everybody, that everybody puts on the beginning of their show, et cetera. It'll skip over that, or any self-promotion or live reads, things like that. If somebody has marked it off and put it online, it'll skip over all that stuff. So it's very handy to have, and I install it on all of my Google TVs and smart sticks. It'll install on a Fire Stick. I do not think it'll install on Roku right now, but the Fire Stick and that On Stick, anything that uses Google TV, you can put it on there.
Jesse Kester.
And keep in mind that in 6 months, the ads will be more prevalent and longer, and in 12 months, it'll be more so, and in 24 months, it'll be even more so. And what's bugging you today would have made you freak out 2 years ago, and that is spiritual attrition that you are opting into.
Courtney Gooden, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, I want to point out another thing that the ads have spawned, which is the AI generation of 30-minute long videos everywhere have now flooded my channel with clickbait thumbnails that try and lure you into, you won't believe what so-and-so did to so-and-so. And then you click on it and it's 30-minute long video to answer one question. If you hear the answer to the question on the thumbnail, it'll be at the very end or buried somewhere in the middle. and it's all AI generated with AI images and an AI voice that just keeps repeating. YouTube has become flooded with these type of videos trying to monetize on a 30-minute long video. So that's what it's putting.
There's a rising term
in the videos. This is what it's brought us to.
There's a rising term that I can't say on the show and would not even if I could, but you will remember in the days of Hallicrafters and the old electronic parts, they would sell kits and they did kitification. And then there's a term that is rising up in the popular consciousness. And I can't believe the amount of that is going on. It is getting so hard to navigate the digital world out there because of this flood, this absolute flood of people just trying to capture eyeballs and no decency behind it. It's like, what can we manipulate the audience to just get them hooked on this and get them going down this thing? And you're talking about these kind of things, you'll never believe what this child star looks like now, and that they're after a particular demographic and they're just going to rope you in. And if you put up with it to try to find that piece of information that they've teased you with, these rabbit holes are long and deep, and I think they're just trying to get you in to dwell on them. And then on the other side of that is exactly what Alex is talking about. So many ads. It's worse than television ever was. And television used to annoy people. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 minutes of ads. Now you only get 45 seconds to maybe 3 minutes of ads, but you get it every third click. And it's done that to the webs, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I'm not feeling good about the state of our for the future with all this kitification going on out there, and it's just not going to slow down or stop. It's going to be more and more. So good luck in strategies. We're all going to have to pay a little more if you want to keep away from some of that. Next question.
Paul Vahus in Austin, Texas. How does Flickr compare as a photo repository for endurance compared to Google Photos, Apple Photos, and other platforms, which will endure the longest?
Flickr's been around for a long time, and some of these things that started as photo sites, I think have come and then they've really become less popular as these free tools from the major things. And I'm thinking of Apple Photos. I mean, it started out as a pretty lame service, but they put a lot of intelligence and thought into it, and it does a lot more than it used to. And I actually haven't seen very many still photo processors that have taken the crown and turned into a professional photo processing tool to take over for Lightroom and those kind of things. People still use them, and that there are some good tools out there, but nothing new other than the AI generative kind of adjacent things that manipulate your photos without having to do it manually. So I don't think there's anything I've seen. I think the online stuff is all you're going to get from now on, because I just think the market is not there for anything else. That's my 2 cents. Next question.
This one's from Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand. Carry over Q from yesterday's 65-inch drums has 2 videos on both Alesis and Roland eKits for sale in 2025. Our resident drummers know. Thoughts?
Jeffrey and the other people who play drums, who are regular panelists, aren't here today, so unfortunately I don't think anybody plays the drum. I know Alex's daughter has been investigating some of those things, but I don't know if he knows anything about these eKits that are for sale. You really need to know pretty deeply in order to make a decision between them.
I mean, a lot of these drums have gotten, some of the new versions from Roland, some of the new versions from a variety of other companies have gotten really, really advanced. I will say I can't, like watching how my daughter uses hers. She's got a smaller Roland kit. I don't know how a drummer, especially one getting started, would use anything other than electronic drums to do to work at home. It's much quieter. It's not silent. I know when she's playing, but it's much quieter than if she had a full set of drums there. But also, it's much more compact. But most importantly, what makes a difference in e-drums is the ability to is the ability to feed. What she does, we've talked about this in the past. She uses Moises, and she basically strips all the tracks apart. Then she can play with the drum part in her headphones, and the simulation of the drums in her headphones with the electronic is her playing along, and then she can turn hers down and play along with and feel like she's part of that song. It's just really amazing. I think that Alesis has not been one of the the most popular ones. Roland and a couple other ones are the ones that have been really pushing the outer envelope of it. But it's a pretty interesting thing. And what's interesting is there's also they are building ones that look more and more like analog drums. So they look like analog drums on the outside, but they're really electronic drums. We've used them in production sometimes when we're doing some surround tests because they don't bleed into the mics as much. So that's another thing that we've kind of taken into account.
Alexander, you had a quick comment?
As somebody who sells Alesis, Roland, Yamaha, especially in the sub $1,000 market for electronic drum kits, I do not recommend Alesis. The build quality on an entry-level Roland and the sound quality on the Yamaha and Roland stuff is definitely superior, and we see a lot more Alesis kits come back with problems than we do Roland and Yamaha, so take that for what it's worth.
There you go, Peter. Next question and last question.
Last question is from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Question for everyone on the panel. What's the temperature in your studio right now, and what is it normally?
Courtney, what are you sitting at?
It depends. 66 degrees this morning because I do not have central heat and air because it's a 100-year-old building. And I have a heater behind me that makes a noise, and that's why I'm on personalized tuned audio. And you probably, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a power blower, leaf blower outside the window right now.
Jesse Kester.
Same as outside, but with a couple Godox 60s.
Alex Lindsay.
I usually am at about 65 to 66 degrees.
I'm sitting at 73. That's where we have our temperature control sitting. It doesn't need to turn on very much because San Diego is so temperate. So I think it depends on where you are. When I was in Phoenix, different story. I had temperatures set a little higher, somewhere usually around 81 or so. And that was a nice difference between the 114 outside in the summer. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. That takes care of the show for today. We want to tell you how much we appreciate your being here and thank our major constituents who are here every day making this show possible. Those are, of course, our panelists who come every single day to freely share their expertise and answer your questions. Without them, this show would not operate. Equally, our producers. That's those of you who are watching, listening to the show. You produce the show by adding your questions, voting on them, and without you, this wouldn't exist because we're here purely to serve what you want to talk about each and every day. And our amazing back-end crew, people who I'm proud to be associated with. After 4+ years of doing this, I've made friends out there, and you wouldn't believe the quality and intelligence and really just amazing people that are in the back end helping this show take place every single day. So we appreciate each and every one of those three groups helping us do office hours every single day. Clock traversal today, 66,000 miles. That's 106,000 kilometers, 521 million bananas for scale. We'll be right back here tomorrow, same time, doing it all over again. See you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
There are leaf blowers in the can.